Thank you so much for joining us for lunch today. I'm Juliana. I'm the Secretary of Women's Masters Network. I'm really excited to have Sobat and Brooke, Brooke should be on in a minute. I think she's just running a little late, of Provectus Consulting. They're here to discuss building a woman-owned consulting firm. It's kind of really exciting to hear Sobat talk about kind of this idea and, building her company. This webinar is sponsored by EnergyGigs, a hiring platform that allows people and companies to officially work together to improve current and future energy resources. You can learn more about EnergyGigs at energygigs.com. And we only have half an hour, so let's get started. So I kind of wanted to start with, Sabat, with you sharing a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. I kind of grew up in the world of consulting. I spent 10 years at Accenture. And right around the time when I started to have kids, I think I was at a crossroads. And I just thought, do I really want to be traveling twice a week, and spending this much time sort of traveling and outside of the house? And the answer to that was no. And so I decided to kind of venture out on my own. And so a couple of us kind of just broke away and started it was more of a collective at that time than anything else. So it was a collective and we worked together. But as the years have passed, we've grown and we've blossomed into an almost 25-person consulting firm. And a lot of that is due in large part to our approach to change management, which we call change by design. And so what's happened over the course of the last, I guess, almost 8 years is that we've transformed from providing just simply consulting services to actually incorporating visual design and marketing practices into that. And so what we have is a really interdisciplinary approach to consulting and to change management in particular. And we found that it really resonates with people. It really resonates with clients. It's creative and it's fun. And so our folks enjoy themselves as well. But it was really something that just an idea that kind of came about because of lifestyle changes that I was kind of going through personally, but it's now blossomed organically into something really exciting.
That's great, right? Like, that's the perfect way to do it. You're like, how do I make this work for me? And then you see that it's, working for your clients.
Yeah.
So could you tell us a little more detail about change by design and kind of how that works? And I mean, it's how your company really differentiates and gets a lot more done, like more effective. So
yes. Yeah, I love talking about change by design. And so I just want to talk a bit about the genesis of it first. So one of our earliest clients was an ed tech client. That client of ours was using a lot of UX design. And so our teams were heavily involved in the workflows of these UX designers. And there was this kind of this collision of change management and UX design. And what we found is, sometimes these change management approaches are very kind of lofty academic sort of things. And if you think about the world that we live in today, where attention spans are so diminished, and people are so busy, people don't, when I see a 30-page slide deck, my eyes kind of glaze over and I'm already not interested, right? And anyone that's worked in consulting has had the feeling, and I can be sure of this, that they're working on a deck or they're working on something and they know this is probably never going to see the light of day and we're checking a box, right? And so when I was working with these UX designers in my team, we noticed that they did a lot of design thinking, that everything was kind of user focused. Of course, the visual design aspect was, really amazing. And so what we did at Provectus is we started hiring designers and we paired them with consultants. And so over the course of a few years, we built out this approach called change by design. So the strategist, the person who is trained in change management, still kind of leads the project, but then we work with designers and marketing experts to bring that to life, right? And oftentimes in organizations, that type of, like the visual design and the polish, it's reserved for external, right? But what we found is that when you apply that to the internal content that you're sharing across, your company, it makes that content a lot more engaging and effective. And so that's really changed by design. And really, I think at the essence, we aim to distill the complex into something that's easy to digest and that's engaging to look at.
That's great. Actually, I was a little distracted because Brooke, you have joined us, but for some reason we can only see your hair. So
I know, I was just thinking, I was like, I thought the background was like the taking over my face. That's so weird. I have a Mac now and it's been weird with video over the last
oh no. So I'm trying to see if I can remove for you.
let me try it again.
Okay.
It's weird. I haven't joined with I haven't used Zoom on this Mac yet, so maybe it's something odd with the settings, but it's weird though because
oh no.
Yeah. It's like covering your face.
I know, but like it should work. Sorry, I don't want to freak everyone out. It's like
Right? I know. I'm like, it's not giving me an
but
option.
it's working. I mean, it's working if let me try something else.
Or you just talk to a ghost, but
The Halloween edition.
oh, so it says, so Garima says that she thinks that the green screen may be disabled on your background setting. And I don't know, it could be that you weren't on Zoom earlier, but then Zoom's disabling it for you. And actually that's a good reminder. We have the Q&A is at the bottom, so please ask any questions that you have, and then we'll try and get them answered. Like you can ask them throughout, and we'll take breaks to look at answers.
Okay, I might need to. I don't want to distract everyone. I'm just gonna go off.
Well, okay. Well, I can't remove it from here, so I apologize. And now
you're good.
But when we get her back, so I wanted to touch on so where, like, so in Change by Design and bringing the designers to work with these consultants, how early do you bring in design? Because I know design is usually like later in the process, or like it can also sometimes with some change management projects to me in the past look like almost an afterthought. Wait, we did all this work, now how do we tell people internally? So how does that work with your process?
Yeah, I think it varies depending on what the appetite is at the client, right? So a client that we're working on right now, oil and gas, they have a huge appetite for design. And so the designers are working with us, they're co-thinking. I think design has often been thought of as like an afterthought, to your point, like, hey, let's make these slides pretty. But we actually think of design as a strategic tool that's going to help shape behavior and change perception, right? And so we, even if externally the designer's not, involved at the client site, we are involved with the designers kind of from the beginning to the end. Like, hey, this is the information that we need to get across. What's a cool way to do this? How can we, for someone who's a visual learner, which, like, it's interesting because a lot of people say they're visual learners, and I think it's like the statistic is quite high. So it's almost like most people are visual learners, especially in our today's age, right? Where again, the attention spans are so diminished. And I say that, and I feel bad about that. I'm an English major, and I used to read a lot, and I know that it's hard for me to get through things now. So we sort of build that into our approach with our clients. And yeah, the designers just work with us hand in hand. They're a strategic partner. They're not like, hey, let's ship these slides off to make them pretty. They are working with us, building each deliverable so that it has the most impact. And again, that's what's fueled our growth, is because we've done that in a way that other firms kind of haven't. And it moves the needle on change, because now you've got people actually engaging with this content that you wanted to get to them.
Yeah, and I like that because it takes a lot of thought, right? Like, so you're understanding more about what needs to happen within the organization, about the organization, and like pulling the design team and everything along with you.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, what are some of like the kind of big challenges that you're seeing with, like, and don't be specific or anything, but like what are some big challenges that companies are coming across right now? And there's so much that's gone on and still going on every day.
Yeah. I'm going to give this one to Brooke because I know I'm sure Brooke's got some great ideas, but I'll just tee it up with, it's the pace of change. There's a lot coming at people right now, right? Personally and in their professional settings. And I think, again, content, there's a lot of content being thrown at people. They don't have the time or interest, unfortunately, to engage with that content. But I know Brooke's been dealing with this, across a lot of our current clients. So Brooke, if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I was like, I feel like you just said it, but I think that a lot of, and I think I said this on one of the last webinars as well, but in fact, I was just in a town hall today with one of our clients that we kind of worked with them on some content, and they kept iterating over and over. The pace of change has never been, this fast, but it'll never be this slow again. And that's just something we've heard. It's not just in the energy industry, right? It's something that even we feel in our personal lives, right? And so I think from like a people or change by design aspect, it becomes even more important to really bring people along the journey and making sure that humans and employees aren't fearful, right? But that you really guide them along the pace of change, but that you distill the information in a very easable, digestible way, right? So as Sabat mentioned before, you guys were talking about as storytelling is kind of one of the key techniques that we use. Is how do we engage like the hearts and minds of our employees, right? Given the fact that this pace of change is exponential, it's going to keep getting faster, right? But we need to bring people along the journey, right? We don't want people to be scared, right? And so storytelling in a very easy format or digestible way is kind of the first kind of tactic that we do. We've been doing that across a lot of our clients in order to kind of mitigate the disruption with the pace of change. But yeah, to Spot's point, that's kind of the main one that I think I've heard every single client and executive say over the last almost year, I would say.
Yeah, I could see that. There's like a lot of talk about different way AI is going to use, and it's like all different levels. Like you're just hearing things constantly happening in something new. And then so bringing that, so then yeah, finding a way to bring everyone along and like embrace change. I could see. I mean, it's a little even more frightening, especially based on like what generation and everything. Are you seeing like generations having like a big impact, like how that balances?
It's funny you say that because one of the executives that we were working with now on some stuff is it's one of the way he puts it is it's change is inevitable. Like it's kind of like you have no other option. Like we have no other option but to digitize, and that's kind of the way forward. Like the pace of change. And one thing that he actually said was that it's actually not a new concept. It's inevitable, yes, but it's actually like how fast change is. Like it's always been here, right? And so I think when it comes down to the different generations, of course, like the typical, stereotype of like, oh, the millennials, and Gen Z have a little bit more of that digital aptitude, right? I think, I don't know, something I'm seeing in a couple of clients, right, is that it's kind of across the board, that all these, different demographics are kind of having been forced to adapt and digitize, right? And that's kind of, again, not to go back to change by design, but obviously that's our approach, but it really is change by design is where that's kind of bridges the gap, because it helps distill in a very easy, non-threatening way that can speak to all different demographics, right? And all different, all those different generations, right? And so I think, and again, there's obviously some types that we have to kind of alter it based on persona, but it's still change by design, the core, right? So yeah, that's
yeah, I mean, that's actually, that makes a lot of sense, right? Like, I guess one thing that's bringing all these generations together is humans just naturally are a little afraid of change. Like, you just don't know what it is. And so then you're kind of taking that and then finding a way for people to be comfortable. And then like, I also like you adapt a little bit, because I read actually this week, so millennials and boomers say, I'll be out of pocket this afternoon, which means like I'm not going to be in the office or available. But then like Gen Z means like, it means you're like chaotic or like acting chaotically or something. So they think it's hilarious. So
yeah,
thank you for letting me know, because I say that, so
yeah.
I might not say that.
It's
So they think it's hilarious. Their boss is like, I'm gonna go act chaotically this afternoon.
You know what though? And with that, actually, gosh, I probably sound like an ad about change by design, but I will say one thing that we're actually even on the operational front. So I just had a conversation with a client this past week about how one kind of what they're called operating discipline, right, as part of the oil and gas industry, is that it's at this client, there's actually different people, it means different things, different people, right? And so even typical business jargon or industry jargon, I should say, or even business terms, right, actually mean different things, different people at the within the company, within their own actual functions and assets. And I think when you put that to a visual, right, when you kind of take that like an operating discipline, right, and put that in simple, not just like human term, behavioral terms, this is what it means for you from a behavioral perspective, but that visual graphics and language, it actually aligns people around that common mission and vision versus talking in those jargon has been something that's about I always talk about with clients is that we come to kind of demystify that. We come to actually rip out that. Yes, we're corporate consultants and we sometimes call ourselves like drones, but we work with a design team that helps be like, that doesn't make sense. Like that's not going to speak to the everyday person. Right. And so that's kind of something that we help bridge the gap from a change by design standpoint.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like I saw that in one of my prior roles where we're using, industry terms and you kind of lose focus that like not everyone in the company knows what West Texas Intermediate is, WTI or something like that. And then, you have people in certain functions like, how did that person, why are they asking that question? But you kind of get very like into your own zone. So it makes sense for you guys to come in and say, hey, you're talking to everybody and everybody needs be part of this change. We do have a question. So what are some of the core design principles that you have implemented with your team so it is a repeatable yet effective design process? I guess I'm assuming that processes have to be repeatable in some form or fashion so you aren't reinventing the wheel during each project. And she asks because she's still trying to find a balance between creativity and productivity herself, which is a great question. Thanks, Garima.
Yeah, awesome question. I mean, Brooke will attest to this. It's always a little chaotic. No matter what we try to, no matter how we try to implement, standardization, it can get pretty chaotic. But I think one of the things that we do, especially when the engagement is pure, like change by design, is that we start every engagement with a design thinking workshop where we identify personas, get a lot of great data from the client. We invite all the designers or creative services folks to that workshop as well so that they can hear and see. And that's really helped us, I think. Brooke, wouldn't you agree? Like that's really helped sort of get the consultant and the design team to kind of rally around different sort of themes and goals that we're trying to achieve. And I think what the designers do is that they think about those goals and themes from their perspective of it, from a design perspective, and we think about it from a strategic perspective, and then we just kind of come together. But I think because change management is so formulaic, it really does lend itself to, okay, now I'm building this, and so I'm going to bring in the designer for this. So I think our designers, it was really kind of bringing them along this journey because they're not used to working within this kind of context. So as we've, iterated with them across clients, they've become more comfortable with the change management sort of life cycle. There's visioning, and then there's like actual, strategy, and then there's implementing and executing, right? And so I think getting us all to kind of, be on the same page is definitely, it's an ongoing challenge, just because you've got different ways of thinking, but I think that also is what makes our end product so great, is because you've got so many different types of brains looking at a problem from different directions and different angles, that the client really benefits from that. I can't say that enough, is that when you've got different vision, different perspectives playing with an idea in their brain, what results is typically like really phenomenal. And it's much better than, like you get 10 me's in the room. Like that's not, you're just going to get one way of thinking and one perspective. So I do think that the power and the magic of what we do lies in the fact that it is such a diverse interdisciplinary team. But I think chaos is kind of built into that, unfortunately. But it's also what keeps it kind of exciting. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
so you can be out of pocket in the afternoon.
Yes. Yeah, we're always out of pocket here at Provectus.
Yeah, if there's any more questions, let us know. I still have a couple more. And you mentioned kind of, your team and growing your team in these projects. Like, how have you been able to find the right people, or do you have challenges with like onboarding, especially, it's very different for a designer to be part of this process than, what they might have done standard.
Yeah, that's probably been the biggest challenge, just getting the right folks together. But I am really proud of the team that we have. I think we've got great people. I think, like, to answer your question, how a lot of people at Provectus have a great network in the world of consulting. Like I myself spent a long time kind of at a big firm, and so that really helps. And it's just kind of, the power of the network really is what I think Provectus can is a testament to that, really. And I've kept, Brooke and I have known each other over 10 years, for example. And she's an executive in the firm, a partner. And so, it was built on a friendship, and now we're working together. So now I'm turning this into like the Brooke and Sobat how we met. But really that's kind of how, in a small firm, I think that's really how it works. We work with recruiters, sometimes, but we typically rely on the network.
That's great. Also, so I like this question. Like, do you have any advice for your past self? And so we can start with Sabat, and then Brooke, you think about it. You get a little bit more time.
Yeah. Advisor, I would say stop worrying. You don't need to worry. I think especially again in the world of sort of boutique consulting, where it's very competitive, things do work out. You just gotta keep at it, and keep delivering excellence. And I think that's how we've grown, is that we deliver a great product, and talent and excellent work, it does bubble up. And so I would just tell my former self to not worry so much, and just to focus on what you do best.
I love that. I was going to say that's kind of, honestly, I wish I could tell my young self that as well. I think mine's a similar concept, but a little different, is I feel like I would just don't take things so personally. And I mean that as someone that kind of grew up just being really hard on myself. And then, I started my career with Accenture, where I met Sabat right after college, and it's been a majority of my career there. And it's kind of is an environment that kind of breeds that competition, right? And it's intense, and it was such a great upbringing. But it is, obviously, if you make a mistake or anything, they call every single little thing right, and you're ranked against your peers. And it was an environment that, great start, but I wish that I would have just realized that all comes the territory. And even as Sabat and I can attest to that, even if we have these clients and are just engaging these clients, there's still things that come up, right? That we're like, okay, learn opportunity, right? And so don't think things so personally. And Sabat knows that all too well, that's kind of the journey. When I joined Provectus a couple of years ago and started with the company, there's been some new learnings for me that I just, I spent a lot of time in industry, spent a lot of time in consulting, and this is kind of a new world for me. Right. And, especially on, like, as Sabat mentioned, the creativity side, it was a whole new world, right? Working alongside designers and creatives. And it was definitely a new learning experience. So I just wish that I just realized way earlier on that it's okay. Like, you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to bounce back, which I know sounds so cliche, but I actually mean, when I speak the words, I actually like believe them in my heart. So.
Yeah, that's a great one. I would tell my former self that as well. Actually, I need to tell myself that now.
That's
like,
it's
so funny. I like mentor these younger girls, and I'm just like, and they're in a little bit of different industry. but I'm just like, they'll like call me and, share a story at work. And I'm like, don't worry about it. They're not thinking about it, but I'm like, I know me as a 23-year-old analyst was like calling my mentors, like bawling of like, I messed up the slide. You know what I mean? And they were the ones that were like, you're fine. Like, and I know Sabat and I have amazing mentors as well that, in our lives that Sabat and I call on the regular to say the
Mhm.
same things. And they're like, oh, that's the everyday for me. We're like, oh, okay. So this is
Yeah.
normal.
Yeah, I still do that. I still do that. So
Yeah, I think what you give yourself, what you give your younger self advice usually is something that you have to remind yourself every day still anyway.
true.
Yeah.
So we have another question. So as compared to your time at Accenture, what's been the biggest learning or surprise of starting and running a consultancy?
Oof.
Yeah.
Spot can talk about starting. I can talk about running.
Yeah. Okay, so what's been I think for me the biggest surprise was the people management aspect of it. It is a lot of your time. And I was expecting to like be sitting with a whiteboard and let's innovate, right? But but a lot of time is actually spent thinking about people and managing them and making sure that they feel heard, but that they're also delivering and that your clients are happy with them and that they're happy with your client. And so there's a lot of that because you have to think about what kind of culture, do you have and what kind of culture are you kind of promoting at your company. So I just wasn't anticipating the level of effort, time, patience, and interest that I would like truly have to take in every single person at the firm. And I mean, I'm happy about it. I love everyone that works at Provectus and it's a pleasure to work with them, but it is a lot more of your time and mental capacity than I was aware of.
That's such a good one, Sabat. Because I wasn't thinking of that one, but that would be my answer too. Honestly, the people front, but I guess just to have a different one that's kind of similar. And this is going to sound, I'm Spot's not paying me to say this. I always heard that expression, like love what you do and you have a work a day in your life. Right. And, I had friends that worked on smaller companies and they like loved or owned their own businesses and worked all the time. And I loved my career in corporate. So I've always loved my job, but I am been surprised of how much that I just, because of the potential and the excitement at Provectus and just change my design and obviously working with Subata, a lifelong friend, I'm so surprised of how just exciting it is and how I was actually driving to our client site today. And typically I work from home, but I've been going to the office just to meet with them. And I was just like, this is fun. Like every meeting I've been in today has been fun because I love what we do. And not that I hated, like if anyone listening, like used to work with me at another company, like I've always loved what I do, but like the potential to even work after hours and just because Sabat and I are excited about an idea, it surprised me of how just it's unlimited opportunity. And I think that's just so fun to be a part of.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
I know, right?
I love working with you too.
So, do we have any more questions? Because I know we're at time. I'll kind of start wrapping up, but I'm still open to questions because I know we love them. But I did want to thank you guys so much for joining us. I really loved hearing about like, kind of everything you're going through, like building this company and like just how you kind of have your team like integrate and work together. It is something different. Like I've worked with consultants when I've been at roles in the past, and I hope to see your work maybe at another. I hope we all get to see your work at one of our companies in the future. I do want to let everyone know on the call. So Women's Masters Network has an event next week at Sesh Co-working. It's in conjunction with Raise Up Families. It's one of our signature events. It's going to be about projecting professionalism, the power of image and service. So we have a keynote speaker and a panel discussion about projecting a professional image and leveraging board service for career growth. And of course, we'll have networking opportunities before and after, drinks, appetizers, and we'll have a raffle supported by some of our sponsors and partners. Morgan Stanley is sponsoring this event, and so is Sesh Co-working. And we hope to see you next week. It's October 18th in the evening. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Provectus Consulting.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.